I just committed what may be the pettiest act of my entire suburban life, and I'm not even ashamed. The HOA president, Queen Karen herself, kept running over my bin. So I built one that weighs 300 pounds. Why? Because apparently, in her words, my trash can drifts into the roadway. The only thing drifting, however, was the front end of her Tesla, right into my property. Let's rewind. It all started on a Monday morning at exactly 5:45 a.m. The sky was the color of an old bruise, a dull gray smeared with purple along the rim of the horizon. I was in my kitchen, sipping coffee dark enough to dissolve a nail, savoring those precious 15 minutes of absolute quiet that exist before the suburb wakes up and begins its parade of complaints, lawn blowers, and HOA notices. From my window, I could see my bin sitting politely at the curb. Standard issue. 64 gallons, forest green, positioned precisely 36 inches from the asphalt, just as required by Section 9, Paragraph C of the Harmony Creek HOA Covenants. I know this rule like scripture, not because I'm some rigid rule follower, but because I adore finding contradictions and loopholes. Rules are a puzzle to me, and my favorite game is discovering the gaps the rulemaker forgot to close. That's when I heard it, the hum. A low, whining, smug little electric purr. The sound of virtue, or at least the sound of a 2-ton self-congratulating battery-powered status symbol. And here she came, gliding down the cul-de-sac. Karen Freeman, president of the HOA, crowned queen of the neighborhood, perched behind the wheel of her pearly white Tesla Model 3, her spaceship of passive aggression. Her face was as serene as a monastery painting. Posture perfect, hands posed delicately on the wheel, the very picture of suburban grace. Right up until she reached my house. Without a flicker of hesitation, her Tesla drifted toward the curb, just the tiniest veer, deliberate enough to be insulting but subtle enough to be deniable. The passenger tires climbed the concrete curb, and then crunch. Like clockwork, my bin, my defenseless plastic $89 bin, was crushed. It spun sideways, toppled, and executed an awkward pirouette, tossing a load of coffee grounds and junk mail catastrophically across my lawn. My lawn, I should point out, trimmed always to exactly 2.5 inches of grass height, precisely per HOA standards. She did not stop. She never did. Just straightened the wheel as if nothing had happened, gliding silently away down the block, her brake lights faintly glowing like a smug grin. 4th week in a row. The first time, I'd rationalized it. A mistake, I thought. Picked up the mess, muttered under my breath, repositioned the dented bin, tried to let it go. The second time, I filed a polite, formal email to the HOA board, attached photographs and timestamps, like a civilized citizen. In return, I received a form letter scolding me about roadway obstructions. The third time, hope died. I bought a new bin, moved it farther up, practically hiding it in my flower bed. Still, she hid it. That time, she actually slowed, cracked her window, and called to me sweet as spoiled fruit. Curb appeal matters. Derek, try someplace prettier for that bin. 36 inches is plenty pretty, I told her grimly. She'd smiled like the physical embodiment of the HOA handbook. Rules can bend. For safety, my neighbor Mark, bleary-eyed from his porch, muttered loudly. Safety from what? A bin? Karen just eased her Tesla away wordlessly. Nonsense hanging smug in the air. And with that, her message was clear. She wasn't bumping bins by accident. This was her ritual sermon. A weekly sermon to remind me exactly who wore the crown in Harmony Creek. Karen and I have history. You don't build this level of animosity overnight. Ours is a tapestry of ridiculous battles. She finding me for choosing a doormat, with too much cheer, me getting a violation, notice over an unapproved garden gnome that had unacceptable levels of jolliness. So when she flattened my bin week 3, she wasn't just flattening plastic. She was trying to flatten me. I called my friend Alex, an actual lawyer, sharp, precise, predictably humorless when it came to HOA follies. On speakerphone, he'd been typing even as he lectured me. Derek, this is harassment. Set up a camera. Document everything. We'll send her a demand letter. Sue her for property damage. It's clean cut. I could practically hear him already composing the paragraphs. Plaintiff Derek hereby demands remedial compensation. But that wasn't my style. Letters are her battlefield. Paperwork is how she carves smug into stone. If I fight her with forms, I fight her where she's strongest. And I don't fight fair. Not when I have a garage full of tools. So that Monday morning, when I saw my bin's guts scattered under a wash of sunrise and Karen's Tesla humming smug into the distance, I didn't feel anger anymore. Anger is messy, short-lived. What I felt was sharp, precise. The same icy thrill I get before solving an engineering puzzle. Mark shuffled out for his morning paper and caught the aftermath. He took one long look at the plastic carnage, then one at me, watching from the window. He mouthed, "She's a real piece of work," then slowly shook his head. I lifted my coffee in a silent toast. But my next steps weren't toward the lawn. They were toward the garage. The mess could wait. My counteroffensive could not. Harmony Creek HOA's bylaws were waiting on my workshop computer. 112 pages of small font power grabs with the personality of cardboard. I scanned directly to Section 9, waste receptacles. Color, forest green or charcoal gray. Capacity, 64 gallons. Placement, 36 inches from the curb, no further. Out by 7 a.m., back by 9 p.m. They covered everything: appearance, timing, size, everything but one small, delicious oversight. Nowhere did it say what your bin had to be made of. Bingo. My grin that morning felt genuine in a way Karen's never could. A loophole big enough to build with concrete and steel. Where she expected paper threats, I would deliver physics. Thus began Project Freeman Folly. The goal: build a 64-gallon bin indistinguishable from the standard issue. Except instead of hollow plastic, mine would be a rebar and concrete fortress disguised as municipal garbage. From 3 feet away, it would look like the same flimsy forest green bin Karen delighted in demolishing. But when her Tesla nosed into it, it wouldn't somersault or bow. It would stand like a bunker. I started with a mold. My dented bin lined with thick plastic sheeting, every seam taped. Inside it, a slightly smaller can, carefully suspended with spacers to create a 2.5-inch void all around. Into that void would go 300 pounds of lightweight fiber-reinforced concrete. If you're imagining an immovable object with wheels bolted on only for effect, you're exactly right. Next came reinforcement. Concrete holds under compression, but fails under tension. A direct hit from a moving car creates shear. So, I bent rebar into circles, welding vertical supports to create a cage that looked straight out of a maximum security prison. I built a skeleton inside my bin, tough enough to face down a charging rhino. When Alex dropped by, sleeves rolled up after court, his tie hanging loose, he just stared at the structure. "Derek, this looks like a federal offense on wheels." "It's a bin," I corrected smoothly. "A very safe bin." He poked at the welded rebar with 2 fingers like it might bite him. "This rebar says egregious 3 times. At least. You used egregious twice in a single demand letter," I reminded him. "That will be 3. By the time I finish drafting." He scowled, half to himself, then more quietly. "Promise me something. No spikes, no traps, no carnage. Just a bin." "Alex," I said solemnly. "Gravity is my lawyer. All I'm building here is mass. A deterrent you can wheel to the curb." From the sidewalk, a boy on a scooter whipped past. "Mister, is that a robot?" I leaned on the cage, sweat streaking my forehead. "Kind of. It only does one trick." "What's the trick?" he asked, wide-eyed. "It doesn't move. I poured concrete on Tuesday, smoothed on Wednesday. By Thursday, wheels bolted and lid snug. The illusion was perfect. To the HOA, it was just another compliant forest green receptacle. To me, it was a trophy of petty resistance. 300 pounds of silent defiance disguised as suburban obedience. On Wednesday evening, Alex called, voice wary, careful as if tiptoeing through a crime scene. "Haven't heard from you. Did you set up a camera?" I finished the draft letter. "It's tight. Clear facts, precedent cited. We'd win on paper." His voice carried that note of excitement only lawyers get from a wall of case law. Wiping grease from my hands, I tightened a bolt and frowned. "Forget the letter, Alex. I'm going with an engineering solution." I told him the plan. Every detail. The silence on his end was long. Finally he spoke, his voice neutral as though afraid the phone itself might record him as an accessory. "Derek, are you sure this is a good idea? What if she gets hurt? You know a judge won't give a damn about how many cans Karen has destroyed. If she ends up in physical therapy, they'll call this a booby trap." "It's not a trap," I argued, steel in my voice. "It's a property improvement, a deterrent, a reinforced waste receptacle. Passively defensive. If she drives her 2-ton ego on wheels into it, that's her choice. Physics, Alex, not malice." On the other end, he sighed. He knows this tone. It's my "I've read the rules and I'm technically correct" voice. "Just be careful," he says. "Where's the line between law and revenge?" You know, I know exactly where it is. It's a painted white line on the asphalt, and she crosses it every Monday morning. Neighbor Mark wanders over on Saturday, while I'm mixing the concrete. He leans against the doorframe, a can of beer in his hand. "Building a swimming pool in there, Derek?" he asks, eyeing the mountain of concrete bags and the rented mixer churning in my driveway. Something like that, I say, not breaking rhythm as I shovel sand and gravel into the machine. Just a small personal high-density water retention feature. He squints at the rebar cage. Looks more like you're preparing for the apocalypse. The apocalypse, I say, pouring in a stream of water. Comes every Monday at 5:50 a.m. in a white Tesla. I'm just getting ready. Mark nods slowly, a look of dawning comprehension on his face. He takes a long sip of his beer. "Carry on, soldier," he says, giving me a little salute before shuffling back to his own yard. The pour is the most critical phase. I work quickly, shoveling the wet gray sludge into the mold, tamping it down with a piece of wood to eliminate air bubbles. It takes hours. When it's finally full, I smooth the top surface, which will be the bottom of the can. Now all I can do is wait. Concrete needs to cure. It needs time to rest, to undergo its slow, magical chemical transformation from mud into rock. By Sunday afternoon, it's set enough. The moment of truth. I carefully cut away the outer plastic bin. Thea mold. The surface underneath is smooth, gray, and perfect. I then wrestle the inner can out. It's a struggle, but it finally comes free with a satisfying thump. I stand back and admire my work. It's a masterpiece of passive aggression, a $300 concrete cylinder. I swapped the flimsy stock axle for a steel hub and solid tires rated for 400 lb. A flat steel plate under the can will take a motor later if I need it. Now for the final touch, the camouflage. I use a special epoxy paint, the exact shade of forest green as the original. I even replicate the faint molded recycling logo on the side. I scuff it up a bit, add a few strategic streaks of dirt. It's perfect. It's beautiful. It looks like nothing more than a cheap plastic trash can. At 6:59 a.m. Monday in the gray light, I roll it to the curb. It takes a dolly and all my strength to get it there. I position it exactly 36 in from the street. It settles with a heavy thud as I slide the dolly clear and lock the platform wheels. I go back inside and set up my camera in the front window, checking the angle, the focus, the battery. The bags sit inside the can from last night. I kept it in the garage to stay within the 7 a.m. rule. All that's left is for the mouse to arrive. I'm up even earlier than usual, a thermos of coffee in hand, stationed by the window like a sniper in a bell tower. I'm up even earlier than usual, a thermos of coffee in hand, stationed by the window like a sniper in a bell tower. The camera is on, its little red light, a reassuring beacon in the gloom. The street is silent, bathed in the pre-dawn glow of the streetlights. My concrete sentinel stands at its post, looking completely, beautifully, innocently plastic. I feel a flutter of doubt. Alex's words echo in my head. What if she gets hurt? I push the thought away. This is about stopping the destruction of my property. It's a defensive measure. A very, very solid defensive measure. The first sign of life is the garbage truck. It lumbers down the street with a hiss of air brakes and the groan of hydraulics. I hold my breath. This is the first test. Will the robotic arm even be able to lift it? The driver, a guy I recognize named Dave, maneuvers the arm to grab the can. The metal clamps close around it. Dave told me last week the arm tops out around 350. I built to 300, just under the limit. The arm whirs, strains for a second, then lifts the can off the ground. I exhale. I'd done my calculations correctly. It was just under the arm's maximum lift capacity. Inside his cab, Dave just watches the gauges as the arm does its job. The can is tipped, emptied, and placed back on the curb with a gentle thud. Test 1 passed. The street falls quiet again. The minutes tick by. Right on schedule, I hear it. The faint futuristic hum. My heart starts to pound. The white Tesla rounds the corner. Its LED headlights scudding sharp lines through the morning mist. It's a pristine, silent predator. Karen is behind the wheel, a silhouette in the dim light. She's a machine of habit, a routine. Her routine is my weapon. She approaches my house. Mike knuckles are white on my coffee thermos. I can see the car begin its familiar, subtle drift to the right. It's happening exactly as I predicted. The front passenger side tire kisses the curb. The car rises slightly and then it happens. It's not the sharp, unsatisfying crunch of plastic I'm used to. It's a deep, resonant, sickening crack. It's the sound of expensive electric engineering meeting. 300 lb of unyielding reinforced American spite. The Tesla stops dead. The can doesn't move an inch. It's like the car hit a bridge abutment. The front bumper, a marvel of aerodynamic design and composite materials, is shattered. It's not just cracked. It's folded inward, crumpled like a piece of paper. The headlight is smashed and the hood is buckled into a surprised-looking V. The car's alarm begins to shriek, a frantic digital scream in the quiet morning. For a moment nothing happens. Then the driver's side door flies open. Karen Freeman emerges. Her hair is perfect. Her business attire is immaculate. But her face is a contorted mask of pure, undiluted rage. Her polished facade has not just cracked. It has been pulverized. She stares at her wounded car. then at the trash can. The trash can that is still standing there, perfectly upright, completely unharmed, with maybe a slight smudge of white paint on its side. She kicks it. Her foot, clad in an expensive-looking pump, bounces off the concrete with a dull thud. She lets out a yelp of pain and hops on one foot, which would be funny if her face weren't so terrifying. By now, the commotion has drawn an audience. Lights are flipping on in houses up and down the street. Neighbor Mark is on his porch, a half-eaten donut in his hand, his mouth hanging open. The Hendersons from across the street are peering through their blinds. And then I see them. The little red lights, smartphones. At least 3 of them are out recording the whole glorious meltdown. Alex was right about one thing. I needed to document it. Turns out my whole neighborhood had the same idea. Karen finally sees me in the window. Her eyes, which are usually cold and calculating, are now blazing infernos. She points a trembling manicured finger at my house, at my can. "You!" she shrieks, her voice cracking. "You did this! This is an assault. That thing is a weapon. I'll have you arrested. I'll sue you for everything you have. You are going to pay for this, Derek Cole. I will ruin you." "Ma'am," Mark called, donut raised like a badge. "You assaulted the can first." Someone across the street shouted, "Call insurance before she calls theater." Karen wheeled on the phones. "Stop filming. This is private," 3 people said in chorus. We're on the sidewalk. The tow truck driver bent, tapped the can with his boot, and whistled. "Dang, that's sturdy." "It's compliant," I said. Karen jabbed a finger so close to the can it almost counted as another hit. "This is over." "It looked over," Mark said around the time your bumper folded. I don't smile. I don't wave. I just take a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee. I let the camera keep rolling. I watch as she continues to scream, her words echoing in the otherwise peaceful suburban morning. I think about my crumpled plastic bins. I think about her smug, silent drive-bys. I think about the dismissive form letters. I think about her belief that she was untouchable. I look at her crumpled car and her shattered composure. Did I go too far? The question hangs in the air for a second. Then I look at my trash can, standing proud and undefeated. No, I didn't go too far. I went just fair enough. This isn't the end of the war. It's just the end of the first battle. And judging by the look on her face, their war is just about to begin. The silence that follows Karen's screeching departure is heavy and sweet. The tow truck arrives and hauls away the wounded Tesla, leaving behind only a glittering confetti of broken plastic and a dark stain of washer fluid on the asphalt. The neighborhood goes back to its morning routine, but there's a new energy in the air, a buzz of shared gossip and spectacle. I tip my trash can onto the dolly, my beautiful victorious trash can, and roll it back to its place beside the garage. It has a few scrapes of white paint on it now, which I decide to leave. Battle scars. The official counterattack doesn't come for 2 days. I'm almost disappointed by the delay. It arrives on Wednesday, not via email, but through certified mail. A thick, cream-colored envelope that feels important and ominous. It's from the Harmony Creek HOA. Of course, my hands are steady as I sit open. Inside is a multi-page document printed on heavy bond paper full of bolded text and legal jargon. It's a masterpiece of bureaucratic warfare. They aren't just finding me. Oh no, that would be too simple. They have, it seems, convened an emergency session of the Architectural Review Committee, which Karen chairs, to classify my trash can. And they have come to a conclusion. My trash can is not a trash can. According to the letter, it is an unsanctioned permanent landscape fixture and a maliciously constructed hazardous device. It's a weapon. They have officially declared my trash can to be a weapon. The fines are breathtaking. There's a $500 fine for the unapproved structural modification of a waste receptacle. There's a $1,000 fine for creating a public nuisance and roadway hazard. And my personal favorite, a $500 fine for the installation of a defensive fortification intended to cause property damage. A defensive fortification. They make me sound like I'm running a medieval castle. The total comes to $3,000 with an additional $100 per day penalty until the device is removed. I have to hand it to her. It's a bold move. She's not arguing about the facts of the case, that she hit my property. She's rewriting reality to make my property the aggressor. It's absurd. It's insane. It's also probably just legal enough to be a massive pain in my neck. I call Alex. I read the letter to him over the phone. I expect him to be angry to start talking lawsuits. Instead, he just starts laughing. A deep, genuine belly laugh. A defensive fortification. He gasps, trying to catch his breath. Oh, that is brilliant. You have to frame that. Seriously, Derek, this is a work of art. She's completely lost her mind. It's not funny, Alex, I say, though a smile is creeping onto my face. They're finding me $3,000. Of course, it's funny, he says. They're terrified. This isn't a power move. It's a panic move. She can't admit she was driving like an idiot and smashed her $60,000 car. So she has to invent a narrative where you're the villain. Don't pay a cent. Let them send more letters. This will never ever hold up in court. He's right. I know he is. But this was never about court. This is a war of wills fought on the manicured lawns of suburbia. Karen isn't trying to win a legal argument. She's trying to crush me under a mountain of paper and intimidation. She's making an example of me for the entire neighborhood. The message is clear. See what happens when you fight back. I spend the evening in my garage, the letters spread out on my workbench under the harsh glare of a fluorescent light. I pull up the HOA bylaws again. I read through every line they cited. The clauses are all there, but they are vague, catch-all phrases about maintaining community aesthetic and preventing hazardous conditions. She has taken these nebulous rules and stretched them until they fit her narrative. It's not about the law. It's about her interpretation of the law. It's a dictatorship of definitions. A cold anger settles over me. This stopped being about plastic the minute she made fear the rule. It's about a bully who's wrapped herself in the flag of rules and regulations to justify her own petty cruelties. She pushes and pushes, expecting people to back down, to pay the fine, to paint their door the right shade of beige, to just give in. She expects me to give in, to get rid of my beautiful concrete creation, and go back to letting her smash a new plastic bin every week. I look at the letter, at the outrageous fines and the ridiculous accusations. I look over at the can, standing silently in the corner, its green paint glowing under the shop. They've given me a deadline. I have 48 hours to remediate the violation. That means get rid of my can and pay up. I pick up the letter and walk over to a clear spot on the wall. I drive a nail into the drywall and hang the letter from it right next to my collection of schematics and blueprints. It's the first trophy in my new collection. Remove it. Not a chance. She thinks this is over. She thinks a scary letter and a few fines are going to make me back down. Oh, this is just getting started. If she wants to play the game of petty rules and violations, fine. I can be petty too. The 48-hour deadline passes in defiant silence. I do not remove the can. I do not pay the fine. Instead, ego on the offensive. A petty offensive. My goal is no longer just to protect my property, but to publicly mock the absurdity of Karen's reign. I am going to use her own rulebook against her, turning her meticulous regulations into instruments of malicious compliance. My first project is the trash can itself. The bylaws clearly state that their receptacle must be placed at the curb no earlier than 7 a.m. on the designated collection day. Karen is a stickler for this. I've seen her taking pictures of neighbors' bins that are out at 6:58 a.m. So I decide to comply perfectly. I spend a day in my garage building a low-profile wheeled platform for my concrete can, powered by a small electric motor from an old scooter and controlled by a digital timer. On the next trash day, I set the timer for 7:01 a.m. at precisely 1 minute past the hour. My garage door rumbles open and the can, moving at a stately pace of about 1 mep, rolls itself down my driveway and comes to a perfect stop at the curb. The whole neighborhood sees it. It's ridiculous, it's theatrical, and it is 100% compliant with the rules. I get a violation notice the next day for unauthorized robotic devices on common property. This brings me to my next inspiration. The violation notices are coming daily now. They pile up in my mailbox, each one more unhinged than the last. Fines for intimidating coloration of a waste receptacle. It's the standard green. And improperly stored construction materials. A bag of potting soil next to my garage. Instead of throwing them away, I see them for what they are. Art. I go to a craft store and buy 24 cheap, absurdly ornate gold-painted picture frames. I frame each violation notice. Then I arrange them on my front lawn propped up on little easels. I create the Harmony Creek Gallery of Grievances. I even add little museum-style description cards. Next to the notice about the robotic can, the card reads, "The Automaton, a bold work from the early Freeman period, exploring themes of punctuality and technological overreach, mixed media on paper." People start driving by slowly, pointing and laughing. It becomes a local attraction. My masterpiece, however, is the driveway mural. I receive a violation for a small oil stain on my concrete driveway no bigger than a dinner plate. The citation references the rule that all driveways must be kept in a clean and uniform condition. Fine, I can do clean and uniform. I rent a high-powered pressure washer. But instead of cleaning the whole driveway, I use the powerful jet of water as a paintbrush, blasting away years of accumulated grime in a very specific pattern. Over the course of an afternoon, I clean a massive cartoonish mural into the surface of my driveway. The image is unmistakable. A sleek white electric car crumpled against a defiant superhero-esque trash can. The lines are clean. The contrast is uniform. My driveway is technically much cleaner than it was before. Karen's rage is a palpable force in the neighborhood now. Her white Tesla, now repaired and looking as smug as ever, is often seen parked across the street from my house. just watching. I imagine her sitting in there, gripping the steering wheel, her blood pressure climbing with every new act of sarcastic compliance. She's losing the narrative. I'm no longer the neighborhood villain. I'm the court jester, pointing out the absurdity of the Queen's decrees. Alex calls, laughing so hard he can barely speak. A driveway mural? You pressure-washed Amaryl into your driveway. You are a magnificent lunatic, Derek. The rules that it had to be clean and uniform, I say innocently. It's very clean, and uniformly a masterpiece of protest art. She's going to have an aneurysm, he says. You know that, right? One can only hope, I reply. But I know it won't end there. A person like Karen doesn't just give up. When public humiliation and bureaucratic bullying fail, she will escalate. She has to. Her entire sense of self is built on the idea that she is in control. The escalation arrives via certified mail on a Friday. This envelope is thicker, heavier. It's not another fine. It's a formal notice of remediation and property seizure. The letter drafted by a high-prick law firm states that since I have failed to comply with the previous notices, the HOA is exercising its right to enter the property to cure the violation at the homeowner's expense. They are sending a contractor to forcibly remove my trash can. They list the date and time, Monday morning, 9:01 a.m. The humor of the situation evaporates. This is a serious escalation. They are planning to send men onto my property to take something that belongs to me. A line is about to be crossed. One that separates petty neighborhood squabbles from something much more serious. I look at the legal document, at the threats, at the sheer arrogance of it. They think they can just come and take it. They think I will just stand by and watch. They still don't understand who they're dealing with. They've mistaken my sarcasm for weakness. The time for jokes and murals is over. On Monday morning, they're going to get the confrontation they've been pushing for. Monday morning arrives, not with the familiar hum of a Tesla, but with the diesel growl of a flatbed truck. It parks directly in front of my house at 8:55 a.m. Its yellow emergency lights flashing, casting a sickly pulse across the manicured lawns. Two men in greasy overalls hop out. They are large, solid men who look like they spend their days moving things that don't want to be moved. Across the street, Karen's Tesla is parked in its usual surveillance spot. She gets out and stands there, arms crossed, a smug, triumphant smile on her face. This is it. This is the moment she's been waiting for. The public removal of my defiance. I'm ready for them. I spent the weekend not in my garage, but in my office, reading. I read my property deed. I read state and local property laws. And I read every word of the HOA covenants, especially the parts about their rights and my rights. An HOA is a civil contract, not a government. They can find you. They can put a lien on your house. But the power to enter your property and seize your belongings without a court order is a very gray and in most states illegal area. She's banking on me not knowing that. She's banking on intimidation. My support team is here too. Alex is sitting on my porch steps sipping a coffee, his phone out and already recording. Just stay calm, Derek, he advises. Don't touch them. Don't yell. Let them make the mistake. Next to him, neighbor Mark has set up a lawn chair and a small cooler. Morning, fellas, he chirps to the contractors. You're going to need a bigger truck. The two men stomp up my driveway and approach the concrete can, which stands impassively by the garage. One of them grabs the handle and tries to tilt it. Nothing happens. He grunts, puts his foot on the base, and pulls with both hands. The can doesn't budge. He looks at his partner, who just shrugs. They both grab it and try to lift it. They manage to get it about an inch off the ground before setting it down with a heavy thud. What the hell is in this thing? One of them mutters, wiping sweat from his forehead. They look back at their truck at the heavy-duty winch mounted behind the cab. That's my cue. I walk out of my front door, calm and unhurried. I'm holding two things. A copy of my property deed and a thick, greasy 5F length of logging chain with a heavy padlock. Good morning, gentlemen, I say politely. Can I help you? The bigger of the two men holds up a piece of paper. We've got a work order from the HOA to remove this trash can. I look at the paper. It's an HOA work order signed by Karen. It's not a court order. It has no legal authority beyond the imaginary kingdom of Harmony Creek. There's no judge's signature. No case number, just HOA letterhead, no warrant, no entry, not a day. I appreciate you're just doing your job, I say, my voice level and reasonable. But that document doesn't give you the legal right to remove private property from my land. This cane is on my property, not common ground. If you attach any equipment to it or attempt to remove it, you'll be committing theft and property damage, and I will press charges against you personally. I point over at Alex, and my lawyer over there is recording this entire conversation. The men hesitate. They look at each other, then over at Karen, who is starting to look less smug and more annoyed. This isn't going according to her plan. They are paid to haul things, not to get into legal battles with suburban homeowners who seem to know their rights. Look, pal, the first guy says, trying to sound tough but failing. We just gotta take the can. Karen must sense she's losing control. She marches across the street, her heels clicking angrily on the pavement. What is the problem here? She demands. I am the president of this association. I am ordering you to remove this illegal structure now. She gets right in the contractor's face. He takes a step back. Lady, he says, holding up his hands. I'm not getting my company sued because you've got a problem with your neighbor. You want this thing gone? You get a judge to sign a piece of paper. This ain't it. Karen's face turns a shade of crimson I've never seen before. She is absolutely incandescent with fury. She's been publicly defied. Her authority has been questioned by the very people she hired to enforce it. She whirls around, her eyes locking on me. The smile is gone, replaced by a snarl. She pulls out her phone and stabs at the screen. You think you're so clever, she hisses into the phone. I'm calling the police. I'm telling them you're threatening these workers. I'm telling them you're harboring a hazardous object. You're going to jail, Derek. I promise you that the game just escalated again. And as I watch her lie to a 911 dispatcher, I know I have to make a choice. This is the moment. This is where the line between law and revenge gets drawn. Right here on my driveway. The police arrive in under 5 minutes. 2 officers, a man and a woman, get out of their squad car. They look professional, calm, but you can see the weariness in their eyes. This is the kind of call they hate. A petty neighborhood dispute dressed up as a major crime. They are walking into the middle of a suburban soap opera, and they know it. Karen is immediately on them, launching into a dramatic, high-pitched performance. She plays the role of the concerned, victimized community leader. Thank you for coming, officers, she says, her voice trembling with manufactured fear. This man, Derek Cole, has been terrorizing our neighborhood. He installed this weapon. She gestures wildly at my trash can. And it has already caused thousands of dollars in property damage. He's threatening these poor workers who are just trying to keep our community safe. While she has their attention, I act. I'm not going to argue with her. Arguing makes it a he said, she said situation. I need to create a clear, undeniable visual. I take the heavy logging chain and in one swift motion, I wrap it around the solid concrete body of the can. I loop the other end around my own waist, pull it tight, and click the heavy padlock shut. Then I sit down on the grass, my back against my property, effectively making myself a part of the defensive fortification. It's a silent, peaceful, and utterly unambiguous act of protest. The officers finish listening to Karen and turn to me. They see me chained to the can. The male officer sighs a long, deep, I don't get paid enough for this sigh. Sir, he says, his voice polite but firm. What's going on here? I don't raise my voice. I don't get emotional. Officer, I say calmly, this is my property on my land. This woman hired these men to steal it. I am simply protecting my belongings. Sir, this is a civil matter, the female officer says, taking over. This is between you and your homeowners association. We can't get involved in that. But you are preventing these men from leaving and creating a public disturbance. I need you to unchain yourself from that thing. This is the legal trap I knew was coming. They can't arrest me for protecting my property, but they can arrest me for obstructing their ability to clear the scene. Karen knows this. She's practically vibrating with anticipation. He's obstructing you, she yells. He's breaking the law. Arrest him. I respectfully decline to unchain myself. Officer, I say, looking the female officer directly in the eye. This is a peaceful protest against an illegal seizure of my property. I've made my move. I've forced their hand. Alex from the porch gives me a subtle nod. The camera is still rolling. The officers exchange a look. They don't want to do this, but I've left them no choice. They've given me a lawful order, and I have refused it. All right, sir, female officer says, pulling out a pair of bolt cutters from his trunk. You're under arrest for obstruction. They cite failure to comply with a lawful police order while they clear a civil dispute. He snips through a link of the chain with a loud snap. The female officer steps forward and tells me to put my hands behind my back. The cold steel of the handcuffs clicks around my wrists. It's a surreal feeling. I'm a 40-year-old man who pays his taxes and sorts his recycling. And I'm being arrested on my own front lawn for being attached to a trash can. As they walk me to the squad car, I see it all. I see the faces of my neighbors peering from behind curtains. I see neighbor Mark shaking his head, no longer amused. I see Alex, his face grim, his phone held steady, capturing the perfect damning shot. And most importantly, I see Karen. She has a look of pure, unadulterated triumph on her face. The kind of look a predator gets when it finally sinks its teeth into its prey. She thinks she's won. She has no idea she just handed me the one weapon that can actually beat her. Public opinion. The night in jail is cold, boring, and humiliating. You share a holding cell with a guy who was arrested for trying to pay for a burrito with a squirrel. and another who just keeps quietly weeping. The cheese sandwich they give me tastes like despair. I have a lot of time to think sitting on that cold metal bench. Was it worth it? The arrest, the criminal record, the night in this place. I think about Karen's triumphant face as the cuffs went on. I think about how she must believe right now that I am broken and defeated, and a new resolve hardens inside me. Yes, it was worth it. This isn't over. The next morning, Alex bails me out. He's waiting for me in the lobby, holding a fresh coffee and my car keys. He looks exhausted, but also wired, excited. "How you doing?" he asks. "I've had better nights," I say, taking the coffee. "Good, because you need to see this," he says, holding out his phone. He has a video pulled up. It's the clip he shot of my arrest, but it's not just on his phone anymore. It's on a local news website and it has over 100,000 views. He swipes. It's on a popular Reddit forum with thousands of comments. He swipes again. It's on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok. It's everywhere. The title is always some variation of man arrested for protecting his trash can from Hey Karen. The video of me, a regular guy being led away in handcuffs while a smug woman watches, has gone viral. "You're not going to believe this," Alex says, a huge grin spreading across his face. "The video, it's everywhere. You're famous. The world feels different when I get home. The street is the same. My house is the same, but the atmosphere has changed." As Alex and I pull into my driveway, Mr. Henderson from down the street is out watering his petunias. He sees me, puts down his hose, and gives me a solid, enthusiastic thumbs up. A woman I barely know who is jogging by changes course to run past my lawn and says, "We're with you." My phone, which Alex hands back to me, is a ceaseless torrent of notifications. Texts from friends I haven't heard from in years, emails from strangers offering legal support, and hundreds of comments on the videos, all variations on the same theme. This guy is a hero. HOAs are the worst. And where can I buy one of those trash cans? The viral clip did more than just make me a momentary internet celebrity. It did something far more important. It broke the spell of fear in my neighborhood. For years, Karen Freeman had ruled Harmony Creek through intimidation. Everyone had astery about her. A fine for a holiday wreath left up too long. A warning about a basketball hoop being the wrong color. They were all afraid of being her next target. So they kept their heads down and complied. But the video of my arrest changed the dynamic. It was so absurd, so clearly an abuse of power that it made them angry and it made them brave. The rebellion starts quietly. That afternoon, I see my next-door neighbor, a quiet woman named Sarah, struggling to carry a heavy cinder block out to her curb. She awkwardly drops it into the bottom of her plastic trash can. She catches me watching and gives me a small conspiratorial smile. An hour later, 2 houses down, another neighbor rolls his can out and it makes a suspicious sandy scraping sound. By evening, it's a full-blown movement. The safety can becomes a symbol of solidarity. People are filling their bins with sandbags, old bricks, chains, anything heavy they can find. They can't all build concrete cans, but they can all make a statement. They can all make their property a little harder to push around. Neighbor Mark becomes the unofficial Paul Revere of the trash can revolution. He spends the day walking from house to house, his folksy charm disarming any hesitation. "She can't find all of us." I hear him telling the family across the street. "There's strength in numbers. We need to call for an emergency meeting. It's in the bylaws. If 10% of homeowners petition for it, they have to hold one." I watch all this unfold from my window, feeling a sense of awe. I had started this fight for my own selfish, petty reasons. I was annoyed. I wanted revenge, but it wasn't my fight anymore. It was our fight. I was just the guy who threw the first punch, or rather built the first bunker. I had tapped into a deep reservoir of resentment that had been simmering under the surface of our peaceful-looking suburb for years. This was never about my can. It was about every ridiculous fine, every condescending notice, every time Karen made someone feel small and powerless in their own home. The petition for an emergency meeting gets more than enough signatures in a single afternoon. Mark, looking like a proud founding father, delivers the signed document to the HOA's management company personally. Karen is outmaneuvered. She has no choice. She can't ignore a demand that is perfectly compliant with the rules she claims to cherish. Late that night, an official notice is slipped under every door on the street. It's from Karen. She's trying to seize back control of the narrative. The notice calls for an emergency HOA meeting to be held in the community clubhouse in 2 days. The stated purpose to address recent threats to community safety, discuss the enforcement of covenants, and reinforce the standards that protect our property values. She still doesn't get it. She thinks she can stand up in front of everyone, use her big words and her PowerPoint slides, and intimidate the neighborhood back into submission. She thinks this is a meeting she is in charge of. But I know what it really is. It's not a meeting. It's a trial, and she's the one in the dock. The showdown is set. The community clubhouse, usually reserved for sad birthday parties and sparsely attended yoga classes, is packed. Every folding chair is taken. People are standing 3 deep against the walls. The air is thick with anticipation and the smell of bad drip coffee. It feels less like an HOA meeting and more like a town hall on the eve of a revolution. I find a spot near the back with Alex and Mark. I'm not the star of this show. I'm just the catalyst. Tonight, the neighborhood speaks for itself. Karen stands at the podium at the front of the room. She's dressed in a severe navy blue pantsuit, her armor of professionalism. She bangs a small gavel and the room falls silent. She launches into her prepared speech, her voice smooth and confident. She has a PowerPoint presentation full of charts about property values and bullet points about the importance of aesthetic uniformity. She talks about safety, about rules being the bedrock of a civilized community. She tries to paint me as a dangerous outlier, a rogue element who threatens the peaceful order she has worked so hard to maintain. She never says my name, but she doesn't have to. Everyone knows who she's talking about. It's a good performance, but nobody is buying it. The moment she finishes and asks if there are any questions, a hand shoots up. It's Mr. Henderson. Karen, he says, his voice shaking slightly but firm. Last April you fined me $200 because my garden hose was, and I quote, a jarring shade of chartreuse. My wife had bought it for me for my birthday. It was a garden hose. Before Karen can answer, another hand goes up. A young mother from the next block. You sent us a violation notice because my 6-year-old's chalk drawings on the sidewalk were an unapproved decorative installation. It was a drawing of a rainbow. And then the floodgates open. One by one, for the next 45 minutes, my neighbors stand up and tell their stories. The man who was fined because his basketball hoop was too close to the street. The family who got a warning for flying a flag for their son's favorite football team. The woman who was told her wind chimes were creating auditory pollution. It's an avalanche of petty tyranny, a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Each story is a small thing on its own, but together, they paint a devastating picture of a leader who used her power not to serve the community, but to bully it. Karen's composure begins to crumble. Her polished smile becomes a tight, strained grimace. She tries to interrupt, to rule people out of order, to bang her gavel, but she has lost control of the room. The power has shifted. It's not in her podium anymore. It's in the voices of the people she lorded it over for so long. She looks small, cornered, and for the first time, weak. Finally, it's my turn. I walk to the front of the room. I don't have a speech. I just speak. An HOA is supposed to be about us, I say, looking around at the faces of my neighbors. It's supposed to be a tool to make our community better, not a weapon for one person to wield against everyone else. This was never about my trash can. It was about being treated with respect. It was about rules that make sense, applied fairly to everyone. We can have a great community, a place with standards and high property values without a dictator. I step back. The room is silent for a moment, and then neighbor Mark stands up, his voice booming with newfound confidence. According to Article 3, Section 2 of the bylaws, he says, holding up a copy of the document, a board member can be removed from their position by a vote of no confidence from a majority of homeowners present at a meeting with a quorum. He looks around the packed room. I think we have a quorum. Therefore, I move for a vote of no confidence in our president, Karen Freeman. Seconded, a voice yells from the crowd. The room erupts in applause. Karen is speechless, her face pale with shock and fury. The interim vice president, a quiet accountant named George, nervously takes the podium. He calls for the vote. It's not even a contest. A forest of hands goes up in favor of the motion. When Hesks for the nays, only 2 hands are raised, 2 of Karen's cronies on the board. It's over. Just like that, in a public forum in front of everyone she had ever bullied, Karen Freeman is stripped of her power. She grabs her briefcase, her face a mask of cold fury, and storms out of the room without a word. The door slams shut behind her. A cheer goes up. People are clapping, shaking hands, hugging. It's a victory. A real one. Not for me, but for all Office. I feel a quiet, profound sense of satisfaction. It wasn't about the crash. It wasn't about the revenge. It was about this. George, the new acting president, taps the microphone. Well, he says, a small relieved smile on his face. Order of business number 1. I believe we need to review the association's bylaws, starting with Section 9, Paragraph C, waste receptacles. The weeks following the great HOA uprising are surprisingly quiet. The neighborhood seems to exhale a collective sigh of relief. The tension that had simmered just beneath the surface for years is gone, replaced by a new, friendlier atmosphere. People linger in their front yards talking to each other over fences. There's a block party, the first one in years, and neighbor Mark, wearing a chef's hat that says Grill Sergeant, is the undisputed hero of the day. The trash can rule is first on the table: size, color, placement, stay. Then we add one clean line, a nod to the wart that started it all. And the receptacle must be constructed of a material sufficient to withstand routine environmental and incidental contact. That's it. No drama, no gotchas. My defensive fortification is now officially just a trash can. Compliant, ordinary, unbreakable. Karen is still around, a ghost in a place she once owned. She doesn't come to meetings. At the store, she looks past you. When she drives the street, she gives every can a wide berth. Without the title, the gavel, and the fear she used to wear like a coat, she's just another neighbor with a to-do list. The power was never hers. We only let her borrow it. I'm back in my garage where things make sense. The bench is clean. Sockets shine in their tray. The old radio hums. I'm sketching a silly project. A GPS lawnmower with a dish on top. It may never work. That's fine. The fun is in the build. I'm not the rebel anymore. I'm just Derek, the guy with tools. That's how I like it. Monday comes again. Coffee, clear sky. I wheel my heavy can onto the platform and roll it to the curb. The motorized base makes it easy on my back. I stand on the porch a moment and breathe. The street is quiet. A bird calls. Leaves whisper. The new truck turns the corner. One driver, one precise arm. It extends, grips the can, lifts, tips, and sets it back down. Smooth as a handshake. No crunch, no shouting, no audience. Just work done right, then gone. I look at the can. It stands there solid, plain, not asking for attention. It's a thing with a job, and it does its job. But I see more. You see the days in the garage, the jokes, the fines, the meeting, the vote. I see a neighborhood that decided enough was enough. We didn't need a hero. We needed each other. I think about Alex's question. Where's the line between law and revenge? I think I found it. It's the curb. It's the edge of your place where your order meets the world. On your side, you clean up. You plant. You build. You try. On the other side, life happens. Cars pass. People make choices. The trick is to be solid without being cruel. To stand without shoving. Sometimes that means you build a thing that cannot be moved. Not to hurt anyone. Not to start a fight, but to end one. To remind the street that respect is part of the deal. To show that rules can be shields, not swords. I finish my coffee and go inside. Behind me, the can stays at its post. A quiet monument in the sun. Not a weapon, not a trophy, just a green cylinder at the curb. The kind you stop noticing when a place is finally calm.